January 7th as a Mike Nolan. Because this has been such an awesome series that David was able to set up for us. I know we all, I can't hear is teaching so much and learning and growing in our knowledge and appreciation of Native American spirituality. If I will just say that next year, Karen Callum will be bringing a friend or two from Mid-Ohio workers to talk about their work around climate. They have done some really interesting things. And some of you, along with me, are involved in our justice and peace work. And I know that we're looking at climate. We're looking for an entry point into that work. We have some choices. So if you are able to come back next week and join us at the forum, you can look forward to that. Some of you know that we have this awesome t-shirt. So this, in addition to an honorarium, we offer to Jane, know that anytime you come back to Covenant, do it. You go out here. The things like that, I'm kind of keep saying these to, and be so later. So fun. Thank you very much. Down there. I will. The groups and one of the species, you know, the t-shirts and the sweatshirts, they're bad. That's the constant. Well, this we're waiting. I'll talk as loud as I can. One of my favorite, I'll make star OCO. Oh, yeah, fine. It's one of my favorite lines from a good beat past. One is you're on site. Four. Yeah, yes, I think. Big chest hiding here. Cool. So right. Yeah. Not fall apart over that. Yes, and just pick up the pieces. Okay, one of my favorite lines from a movie was Kermit the Frog singing in the Muppet movie. There's not a word yet for old friends we've just met. And I feel like that, having been these weeks with you. I really appreciate your hosting me. I'm so honored by it. And I, so appreciate the interchange that we've had. So anyway, thank you all very much for your hospitality and your good nature, laughing at my jokes. That kind of good. Thank you for that. I was going to talk to you today about our ceremonies and the power of stories. And then the other night, I had a dream about nothing. Don't worry, doctors. It wasn't about going to the other world. But I had a dream about a way to tie together the things that we have been talking about. Before I launch into that, do you have any questions that you are just burning to ask me? You know, about one thing or another.
So does that mean you're not going to talk about ceremonies?
Yes, that's what it means.
Okay. So I guess I have a question about ceremonies then, which is, I'm assuming they're around the seasons of the year, but I don't know for sure. I mean, and you don't need to go into the long thing about that, but I am curious about the ceremonies and the ritual.
I'll give you an overview.
Okay.
And then details of the ceremonies are in the Elder Speak book.
Okay.
But our new year is in October. And so that's pretty, that's pretty important. That's kind of a feast. It's very much actually like the Jewish feast at Foods. We built little huts, and then we have a lot of food, a lot of dancing,
and we look forward to the new year. And then, see, that's October. In November, we have a ceremony, and I think it's probably the most important one. It's not everybody's favorite, but it's important. And it's called the forgiveness ceremony. And it seems like somebody had asked, maybe it was Mona, when I first started talking, if you do something wrong, and how do you reconcile with people? During the forgiveness ceremony, we're all in the sacred circle, and each person goes to each other person and says, if there is anything I have done this past year to hurt or offend you, please forgive me. Each person goes, each other person. My husband, I tell my husband, I really think that this ceremony has made me a better person. And he says, oh yeah. But there are times when I don't do or don't say something that I really want to, knowing in November we'd have to face this person. Yeah, I can do it now. Of course, you can always do it now. But I want to have to ask for forgiveness for this summon thing. The number of years ago, I have a sister, I have a bunch of sisters, but I have a sister who decided that she had multiple personality disorder. It'd be noticed. All right. But I'm afraid she doesn't. That's just the way it is. I was telling some cousins, so just before the forgiveness ceremony, one day, one cousin said, well, I'm glad Jamie isn't here. And he said, why? And she said, well, she just has to go around and around and around. I was not listening to all of these. Some this shit. But the other ceremonies really are around the in the springtime. This isn't the community ceremony, but when we're getting our gardens ready, we have a ceremony of cleaning up the garden, burning off the leaves and the twigs, and for particular prayers for that. There is a ceremony when the corn begins to tassel, where you take just a little bit of the tassel and you throw around if you bless the barn coming to get a better or a good crop from that. And then we have, in the summertime, when the corn is ready to eat, we're in Cartier, we have the green corn ceremony. And the law is we do not eat any corn whatsoever before the green corn ceremony. Because you have to make sure that when the corn is gathered, you're going to have enough to survive the year. And so if people going out eating the corn, picking at it, you may not have enough. And that was way back in the old days. That was so important that you could be put to death if you were caught. Then there was the ripe corn ceremony, which is another feast of the harvest. And that's the big one. Once every 7 years, we have, it's called the Uku dance for the principal chief, celebrating the principal chief. And it happens in the tribe that we got. And our chief weighed close to 400 pounds. And what he had to do, was to, 4 men were supposed to hike up the tree on the little carrier, walk him into the circle. These guys, so they got him in there. They got it. They did it. But anyway, that's once every 7 years. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my dress because this is a Cherokee tier dress. If it was a tier dress, I would have bands around the arms and around the skirt with diamond shapes for tiers. But this is a tier dress. When the white people came and brought with them cotton, the Indian woman said, hey, that's cool. It's a lot easier to do that than chewing up skins trying to make something, to make a dress. But when you don't have scissors, you take a sharp knife and you see everything on the dress is square or rectangle. So you just tear it, like a little slit, and you tear it. Very simple to make, to do that. Not so simple to assemble, all this gathering and everything. But when you had one dress like this, you kept it forever. And, I've noticed today trying to get in the car how it drags on the ground. I suspect we got pretty dirty. Yeah, but here's the thing. You can't afford usually the fabric in order to make a new dress. So if, the bottom gets too ragged, or if you get pregnant, you have to expand. You just take the skirt off and turn it over because it's a lot bigger, sew it on, and then that's gonna last you. And then if you start putting on weight, you just roll with it. So that's kind of, the idea of the chair dress. It's supposed to have a ruffle here, then there's so much ruffle like he put out good. So, okay, for what I really want to do, because we talked about walking in harmony of balance, and we talked about time and about creation, ourselves within time and creation, walking in harmony and balance. I decided I'd like to pull it all together with something that I had written. This is in the latest book that I published a couple of years ago. The story, it's called My Blue Angel, and it takes place about a mile from where I lived in Pike County. And the story, the main character in the story is a guy named Gimpy. And Gimpy was born in the 40s mentally. And he had trouble. It wasn't diagnosed, but it was on cerebral palsy. Dr. Ahmed, who think be here today, he's my medical advisor for my books. So he affirmed that that's what Gimpy's problem was. So anyway, Gimpy, by the time he was 13, his left arm didn't work, and he had trouble with his left leg keeping his balance, and he also had a stutter. I can't say it without the word. His best friend lived up the road, and she was a Cherokee girl, several years older than him. But she was the one, when Gimpy was born, they named him Samson Snodgrass. And if you've got to study the stutter, that's a very difficult name to try to pronounce over and over again. And when he first started school, some big boys were bullying him. And Kizzy, his Cherokee friend, stood up for him. And then she said, "Can you say the word Gimpy?" And he would say the word Gimpy. He said, "Okay, that's what you're going to be, Gimpy." And that's what he was for the rest of his life. But by the time he got to be about 13, he was going through some of the preteen growing stages. This would have been in the early 50s. And was tired of being crippled and having stutter and just not being able to do things that the other boys could do because his left arm didn't work. He couldn't go hunting when the other guys did. There were a lot of games he couldn't play, and he was getting fed up with it. So now, and this is also written in the vernacular of both the time and pretty much our area. Okay, this is Gimpy has a history of this. It were a cold day in early November. I was sitting at the kitchen table drawing doings, talking to Mama while she made the bread. There come a knock at the door. Kezzy stuck her head in. Gimpy, she called out. Come in, Kezzy. Mama looked up from her bread. How have you been keeping? How's your ma? We're all just fine, Miss Snodgrass. I came to fetch Gimpy to our place if he could go. Pa and the boys gathered hickory nuts the other day, and Granny and Ma and him are making cookies today. Mama looked kind of puzzled, but she nodded at me. Want to go? I wrapped my sweater around me, and Kezzy and I set off to her house. It wasn't fur, but it was uphill, and walking there took my breath. The Adcock's kitchen was filled with women. Lots of them seemed to me. Kezzy's granny and Ma and her two aunts, Una and Adamara, and a couple of cousins, and there was a couple of babies crawling around on the floor, and some wet-wets, and a corner lying with pieces of kindling wood. Everybody was hard at work, and you were laughing and telling stories, and somebody would start to sing, and everybody would join in. And then the singing would stop, and somebody would tell remembering, and they'd look real sorrowful, and then they get back laughing, joking again. I watched real hard cookie making, because I knew Mama would want to know about it, how they beat the hickory nuts to little pieces, then sift it to get the shells out, and then beat it some more. Her granny had a big old wad with a hole cut in it, and a long-handled beater. With it, when the hickory was beat enough to almost a paste, the women made balls about as big as my fist. I was near about 13, but small for my age. And they dropped them in the water boiling on the stove, and when the balls fell all apart, they sifted it again, so that all the last bits of shells could get out. Then they'd put it back in the pot and cook it with new-made hominy. It smelled real good. The kitchen was warm, busy, and happy, and I just sat and smiled. Then Granny stirred the kanuki, and she tasted the soup thoughtfully. She was quiet a while, thinking of something, and then she commenced to talk. Our people has been making kanuki since time immemorial, she began, and everyone wondered. A baby crawled over to his mama, and she picked it up, and that did her blouse and gave him the ditty. We was living down south in a land so rugged and pretty it plumb took your breath away. Our village was up by the Joe River in the place the white folks call North Carolina. We just called it home. That's where we had our cabins and gardens, our clans and councils, our headmen, pretty women. We had our ceremonies, stove dances, and every mornings. We would sing our morning song and go to water. Like everybody else, we had our arguments, fought our battles, but we was no better than we ought to have been, and no worse than we could have been. We lived as we had been taught by our ancestors. And then the white folks came. Somebody bawled. Well, the white folks weren't happy that we was there. They told us there was the government now, and they could tell us what to do from now on. But they just couldn't make up their minds what they wanted us to do. They started pushing us off our land, so telling us to go somewhere else. Then they told us that if we started acting white, they'd just leave us alone. We wasn't sure what acting white meant, because it went against our teaching to be so mean and selfish. But we learned English, and those government people took the parcel and out bits of land to us. So we had to start living just with our families of farms, and not in villages where we shared the work and the pleasure too. And the men took up farming, which they was hard-pressed to do, since they had never done nothing in the garden, except lend a hand now and then. The women took care of the houses, large a spend of weeds, which was a sight less burdensome than Janet hides for our clothes. And missionaries come and started churches, schools, and made us pray to Jesus, even though we couldn't figure out why we had to pray to a white man. They said that he died for our sins, but we didn't know what sins was. We were supposed to dress like white people, but that was hard because a lot of them dressed like us. And those white people never went to water, and they smelled worse than 3 days dead skunk. There was laughter and snitching. Well, then more and more soldiers was coming at it. We got a real bad feeling, especially when they commenced milling forts with stockades. Our chiefs met in councils and sent delegates to the government in Washington to get treaties. But it seemed nothing when pleads the white men until it was all gone. Dead and gone. We figured that was why they were building those forts. So we was all trying to figure out what to do. Should we leave our homeland or make a stand and stay? Some packed up and lit out to the west, way beyond that big river into that unknown world. Some started north to make a life up there, where we heard folks was nicer. The rest of us just stayed put, hoping maybe the white folks' Jesus would come to listen to his words. Well, there come a day when our men folks was working in the fields, and women were at the spinning wheels, and children were out messing in the creek, when a messenger boy came running and screaming, soldiers be coming, they're killing everybody, and setting fire to their houses and fields, run, hurry. He was so out of breath and worn out, he fell short. Granny hollered for the men and the children, and started picking up foodstuffs and pots and blankets, and the boy kept hollering, hurry, hurry. So everybody hurried, grabbed a few things we could carry, grabbed up babies and littlings. We all lit out for the mountains. Our Doda grandfather had feared this was going to be happy. Somebody found gold in our Cherokee country, and white folks seemed to go just plumb crazy when it came to gold. So Doda had gone out to find a deep cave. We could hide it for a bit, at least if we had to. We grabbed the messenger boy up and took him along because he was too wore out to run any further. Doda led us to the cave, and we hid well back so nobody could see or hear us. The messenger boy, who was Nora Usti Bear, told how the soldiers suddenly appeared. People was working all over their farms and in their cabins, and some were sitting at the table eating. And them soldiers just busted into the houses and started going all holler, and they grab up tiny babies and bash them against the wall. And when the moths would cry out, they'd twist bayonets in their bellies. And they clung children over their head, and they'd shoot any man that would come running. And anybody who wasn't dead or close to it, they marched outside to hold it running. Then they'd plunder the houses, toss out the babies and little ones in a heap, set fire to the houses, and the barns and the fields. And they shot at the animals they had outside, mules or oxen in the trace, lambs in a pen. Yona Usti said you could smell the stench from all the fires all around, and hear the screams of the women, the wails of the children, and the men shouting and the animals bawling. And them soldiers was laughing and shooting their guns all around to not carry anything in. They lined up all the folks that was left, started them marching, and anybody who couldn't walk, they clubbed him to death. Them soldiers wasn't going to leave nothing alive if they could help it. Oh, the woman became to. Oh, when Yona Usta had told all he could, he lay down and turned his face against the wall and said no more. Our heads was bowed down and shoulders hunched, our tears splashed in the fort, and even our cries of "Aye!" were soft evil. In the warm, safe kitchen, the women were crying. They began to groan, "Oh, aye, aye!" And Kissie's ma threw her apron over her face and moaned, and I was crying too, listening to the sad, sad wails, feel the broke hearts. But the story wasn't finished. Granny went on in such a soft whisper. We had to stretch our necks and incline our heads to hear her words. In that cave, we was all playing as quiet as we could, 'cause we didn't know where the soldiers was. And we was thinking of all our kinfolks and friends and other villages, and we were bitter, also because of the government made so many false treaties and told so many lies and be so cruel, so cruel. After a couple of days being cold and thirsty, Agidodo decided to sneak out and find out what happened. When he come back in the cave, his face was stone cold and grim as Granny had ever seen it. He sat down in the cave opening and looked out over the mountains. Tears was running down his face and into his lap. It's gone, he said. It's all gone. The houses is just burnt wood, all the fields are burnt life. I didn't see no living body anywhere. He told the same ones that had been killed lying on the ground, the bodies of tiny babies with they had stashed in. 'Twas not, and of children with their insides remembering that. And he told of the dead animals rotting in the sun, and the puddles of blood turned dry and hard all over the ground, we had always called sacred. We all feared for those dead who would never have the proper ceremony for their journey to the other world, whose spirits would wander this earth, seeking their way home. It is more than I can bear, Abidodo sobbed deep, hot tears and spoke anymore. Yona Busti, who hadn't said a word in 2 days, finally spoke. We have to go north. We have to go to where no one knows who we are. We got to pass as white. The night show, nobody. Oh, the woman in the kitchen were sobbing, and the babies began to cry. They cried, and then they began the most fearsome noise I had ever heard. It wasn't a scream, pardon, but a high, loud noise come up from their insides, and was fearsome and sad and lonely, also lost. My bad arm started flinging itself around, and my head was shaking, and I was moaning, no. The granny went on, and her voice was chilling. It's when my great-grandma and grandpa started us on the way north. They met up with others who had escaped the soldiers and took care to avoid the soldiers who were on the lookout for anybody who got away. We started passing as white. They never knew place of country we were black out. I mean, loved it, mustard. Never told us all who we were really, or where we come from. Took us a lot of years to get there. Seems like no matter where we went, no matter how we tried to hide out or sit in, the government had use for the land we were on. In one place, they called it dam. In another, they wanted a national park or a mining company would have moved us out so that they could rip up the precious earth, so they could tear the very foundation of the world. Or a logging company would want to cut down all the trees and all the forests all around. Or a county that wanted to color the road right to where we lived. And they were allowed to take our land for something they called eminent domain. They would pay us a few dollars, and it's our like. That's why we don't tell them we are. Why we keep our secret close. But we're still jerking. Pretending to be white. And we're still pretending to love Jesus. I put my head on my arms and cried along with women and babies in that warm, sweet-smelling kitchen. And I was moaning and crying, and my bad arm was flying every which way. Guess mom came up behind me and threw her arms around me and held my down still. She rocked me back and forth like I was one of them babies and said softly, "Oh, Gimpy, listen now, listen. This is a story that brings our old ones alive to us. And that makes us strong. And our story will make you strong. You can become a part of our story. You become a part of our secret. And your tears, Gimpy, have opened your spirit. You are one of us. Now, you see, Gimpy, when we make Kanuki, we cry, tell the stories. But we know that we will also laugh and tell the stories. The stories of the trickster rabbit, and how the possum lost his tail, and how red bird's feathers turn white. Gimpy, we can't tell the stories unless we feel the grief and the laughter. We have to taste the bitter salt of our tears, the flavors, the Kanuki. We have to shake with the laughter as it bubbles out of us. You see, we need it all to make our lives. The laughter and the tears, the strong and the weak. When we are together like this, telling stories like it was yesterday when it happened, when we are grieving so hard, we must whisper the words because it is too holy to say them out loud. These are sacred times, Gimby. These are the times we treasure in our hearts. Your crazy arm and twisted body ain't a bad thing that you might think it's so. It is what makes you who you are. It is a sadness and a gladness all in itself, and tears and laughter work up together to make your life. You are sacred, Gimby. We are all sacred. But what grows? The Kanuki is done. Let us all sit together and eat and sing, remember. And with her words and the taste of Kanuki and my tears on my tongue, I knowed it. Oh, I knowed it in my heart, in the cellar. I could smell the smoke of the fires as they burned the houses and the fields, that terrible smoke from the fire licking up every living thing. In the fields, I could hear the screams of the women and the cries of the babies, their deep, frightened shouts of the men, the fearful scream of the animals, cows, horses, and sheep and oxen as they were shot and gutted, and I could smell the deep, rich, red glands it soaked into me. Then deep in my mind, I felt the club and the soldier's gun stock smashing into my head, because I am Gimpton, and I cannot walk far. But every day after that, every single day after that, I never felt so bad about my own twisty self, because I too am wrapped in the metal, mutually on the sacred light frame room. When I come home later, much later, filled with the soup and the warm stories, Mama asked me, "How was your afternoon?" I wasn't ready to say this new, vast, joyous thought out loud, not writing it, not without turning it over and over in my head and rolling the idea through my own twisty self, not even tomorrow. I wanted to hug this wonderful new thing, draw this into myself for a while, and taste the words on my tongue. I am sacred. I sacred. So I smiled at my mama and told her, "It's just fine, Mom, just fine." I share that because so often we look at our history just as history, just as something to feel or to be studied, not as something to feel. And yet, it is something to feel. So, I made some fun. Not Kanuki. We do have hazel, hickory nuts in our woods, but can we have them now? But I did make something that's quite traditional, and I'm going to pass it around with the napkins. It's jerky bean bread. It may be an acquired taste. It is to read. But just take a piece of just pass it. Give her a whirl. See what you think. If you just want a little tiny bite, save the rest and throw it to birds when you get home. Definitely. So, Sandy, thank you for sharing us this story about the Cherokee, but I don't know if everybody in this room understands that the U.S. government broke every treaty they signed with the American Indians, every single one, the Native Americans to be right now. So you can single pass Catholics in power. Yeah, Freddie. Any questions? Go on.
Thank you for that piece. And my question I had he spoke to a little bit, but I wonder if you could share a little bit about grief. Are there ceremonies around grief that I learned from? I think that in the Christian tradition, I worry that the promise of a life after death is somehow meant to blunt the tragedy of loss. And based on what you shared there, it seemed like that is a luxury not for them, and perhaps the Cherokees. I wondered, yes, the role of grief and how ceremony plays in.
I appreciate that question because that's a concern that I've had. What we have, what used to be a funeral, now it's a celebration of life, and that worries me.
Too. Yeah.
Not because it's a celebration, but because we have to grieve. Do you know what? Can't even pronounce it. Dennis. I can't do it very well. I need my granddaughter. I taught her how to do it. It's fearsome. But if you stand around the dead person, can you do it's really late? And laugh as loud as you can. That's part of our grieving. And we believe, we're going to miss the person. We can't just pretend like, oh yeah, we grieve when our kids move away across country, right? We're allowed to grieve at that. So we grieve. And we cry at the time of the burying. 10 days later, we have a feast saying there. So we've had 10 days of total grief. Now, this feast, we will begin to change the way we have things. So they're not as despondent as we were when we this death. And then a year later, the date of the death, we have another feast to mark that death. So, what do you think?
Too.
My husband poured honey on it, and I would think I'd be a lot better with him.
Very good.
It's good here it goes. A lot better to break up in a bean soup, but sounds weird. So that's our take on it. I'll tell you, my husband came very, very close to death. And when he was in ICU, he couldn't talk yet. He wrote about a kid. He said, he named 2 people. And he said, I want them to do my eulogy. I said, I said, if I be thinking you're about ready to walk on it? And it said, just got it. Well, he did. So, which is nice. And I told these 2 guys who happened to be what we call returning citizens, people that didn't know in prison, with both, in prison, who want to become my husband's dearest friends, from the outside. And so I called them and they said, let's have a celebration of his life. Let's get and we did. And it was incredibly wonderful. But speaking of that, last time I wore this dress, Doug was in rehab, after having been in the hospital for a good many weeks. I had been invited to the Ohio Women's Reformatory to speak, and I wore this dress. Well, that morning, my son, who thinks he has a sense of humor, posted on Facebook, typical Pike County family story. My dad's in rehab and my mom's going to prison. So, other questions with Ben?
The story mentioned North Carolina.
North Carolina, yeah.
is that the area that is now Cherokee? Was that taken away and giving that? No, it's a little different.
This was what's now neighboring county, off the Toe River, which is just real close to the border to Tennessee. It's real close if you're familiar with the area at all. There is the Lawyer's Path. That was about a mile down the road. That's been my family. Some of this is sort of the history of my family. So had their college right there off the Toe River. And, yeah.
Our folks to the Appalachian Trail is that I'm between North Carolina and Tennessee.
I don't know. I'll have to
That's patch. Yes, I'm thinking where you can see all three states 50 miles into the state.
well, I'm not sure where this is in relation to that. Yeah.
And Cherokee, how would you start the time frame? I know that it's so different. Like we would say that like 17 this or 18 that. But how do you speak on the time that the people left North Carolinas?
The time when we left? That's it, the time we left. Yeah. Those who were actually taken on the Trail of Tears, it's the time of pride. Here, when 30 a quarter of the people who were taken on that trail died on the trail. But, that story is still very, very close to us, very personal to us. And, I had some friends in Arkansas and little Cherokee friends. And the guy was telling me that not far from where they lived, there was a well. And he said it's kind of a public well. And he said it's there that the people stop if you get the water. If he said that's where the story is that as they cry and their tears hit the ground, the Cherokee Rose do what? That's the origin, the Cherokee Rose story. So, yeah, we have quite a history. And I hope we have quite a future in together. And those people like you who helped us have that future.
When the story is told, does it go deeper? I mean, that was obviously traumatic. I mean, for everyone, but does the history go back further, and is that story told at a different time?
We have so many stories that go back so far. Yeah. For many different occasions. And of course, in the winter time, we tell stories. Share the stories. Yeah.
Tribes have different stories?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so each tribe would have their own sort of history?
Yeah, for instance, the Cherokee have this old, it's called the feathered serpent, the Uktana. And one of the reasons why the Shawnee and the Cherokee never got along is because Cherokee said the Shawnee stole the jewel out of Uktana's head. Big thing. And anyway, but that's specifically a Cherokee story. Of course, most of our stories teach us something.
In Trail of Tears, was that just Cherokee? It gives out the roundup every day.
they've rounded up everybody across the country. That I'm Navajo called it long walk.
Yeah, that's, I can understand how telling stories it's a way of already for the first time, and many wish people just the different tribes with them at work. Very mind to that. But what's the story today that you're telling about what come to how are you preparing the younger people to tell your stories now? I don't know how to say that anymore.
No, I
So many of the stories are, way back, but you're creating stories now.
yes, we are.
With your peoples.
And as we tell the old stories, we're updating that to our time. But, now, thank goodness, now our people getting educated. And so we have access to media. And, Deb Halen, who's so gosh, and she's head of the interior. Interior. Now, I just can't remember what tribe she's from. She is American Indian, and she appointed another Indian to be the head of the national parks. That's an amazing thing can happen. And we have newspapers that, online newspapers, Indian Country Today, for instance, it happens. So we are able to disseminate information all over in a way that we never were able to. And so that's one good thing about education. I mean, among others, of course. But yeah, that's, yes. So, okay, one last,
The Smithsonian Museum of, Native American culture. How well do they get that right? My husband and I spent most of the day there. It was pretty overwhelming because it's trying to represent that on his wandering way.
I love that. Absolutely. The National Museum of the American Indian. Go, if you can, go. Tony, that was curated by an Indian people, and they tell all of the stories from the tribal perspectives. And I don't know whether it's still there. When I first went there, there's this whole huge door with names by tribes that was that nobody ever really knew about. That all of the stories come in the people. The food, in the cafeterias, that's native food. And so I just think it's enormous that everything is done by and about Indian people. And the nicest thing about them is that they ain't got no truck with this federally recognized and non-federally recognized thing. They say it's unfair for people like us to be not recognized by the federal government. So, it's now.
That's because you go to the Jordan Dip area in Canada. And depending if you want a short trip to wonderful data, right on Lake Huron, you go north on Fort Huron, Michigan. Along Lake Huron, you'll come to Southampton, and there's a wonderful library there. And now, as you get up to Tobermory, when just at the tip, north then, you'll come to fabulous museum too. But what they must do, go up the fire tower, climb up those stairs, and look out over your bed. You will see clear yellow that you're wearing from the foliage of the trees. Then you'll see clearly the orange. It'll change your life.
I know you have to be moving on. Let me just say how much I appreciate being there. It's what an honor it is, even to have step was tight with you. So, just want you to know, you're all invited down to Pike County. Enough. You know, we'll put on a kettle of beans and make a pot of tea, and we'll sit out on the porch and we'll sit and we'll talk about the world as we know it. So, please, change anything.